Louisiana, Austin. We are here at Wilbur Still Hall Art Gallery. Tonight, there'll be a reception to celebrate the opening of the new art exhibit. We are going to go take a look inside to get a sneak peek before everybody else arrives. Here we go.
Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Yeah. Father, Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Oh, picket lines and picket signs don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see, oh, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on, yeah, what's going on, oh, what's going on, right on, right on, right on.
As you look around, you will find a quilt and a poem that connect. James P. Mays is the author of the poems. Andrena Coleman created the quilt. Dr. Deborah Barnes will give the introduction of the event.
I'm Andrena Coleman, and I'm the quilter in this exhibition. Tonight is the opening reception for SoJourns, the artistic creations of Andrena Coleman and the inspired writings of James Mays. This is a collaboration of fabric art and poetry and spoken word. I've tried to, through my quilts, reflect the words and the poems and spoken words written by James Mays. It was a challenge, but it was a good challenge. You had to really feel the words in order to put together the pieces in these quilts. And I'm excited about how the two have come together in a very unique collaboration.
This exhibit is all about the Black Arts movement and the kinds of voices of resistance that came out of that era. The Black Arts movement starts about 1968, goes through the 70s, and it is all about Black power and how Black people, particularly students, felt about resisting white oppression in ways that showed their African roots and African traditions. So in those days it became very important to understand your connection to Africa. So you see a lot of African motifs in these quilts. Also with the poetry, the oral tradition comes out of Africa, and a lot of the strategies that Mr. Mays will use in his poems come directly out of the African oral tradition.
Some of the things that I've written showed up in a Broadway play, The Me Nobody Knows, which has 3 of my poems. Additionally, I published in local newsletters in New York City, and along with some colleagues of mine, we published our own anthology of poetry in about 1968-69. So it is customary in our tradition to always invite God's Spirit, the Spirit of our ancestors, in our community to help us open up events. And so I would like to do 2 things before reading this libation. On the back of the program, you will see a copy of the libation we will do this evening. But a libation is a drink offering to honor and please the Creator, our sacred ancestors, humans present and not present, and Mother Earth. We are here to honor God who has come to this place. We use water in this libation this evening as our invocation. A water offering is for cooling and healing in creating or reconciling relationships. After I read, and you shall see, or says so on the libation, I will either say, let it be so, let it be done. When we are asking, we are invoking the name of our Creator, right, to help us follow through with the things that we've mentioned. So let us begin. This libation this evening is titled A Libation for a Free People. Acknowledgement. We are an African people. We are blessed by the Creator Spirit with abundant life origin. By the leave of the Creator Spirit, we are protected and inspired. We are a new manifestation of the continuity. Born of forced separation, middle passage, and bondage, we are the African peoples of the Western diaspora. We acknowledge your favor upon us. We are sojourners' prayers at the river reborning. Affirmations. Violence, greed, and ignorance severed us from our ancestors and ancestral home. We cried out to you. Brutus was our journey through the dread of the middle passage. Oh, we cried out to you. You covered our pain with mercy. You saw us through. Let it be known. Lust and exploitation killed our freedom and devoured our offspring. We endured in your presence. Vehemence buried our humanity, soiled our bodies, and tortured our souls. We found you in our supplications and songs. You lifted us with visions and possessions. You lifted us in praise. Let this be known. Supplications. Bless our prayers and meditations. In Yoruba tradition, Ashe, let it be so. Bless our ancestors. You may call the name of one of your ancestors. Bless our ancestors. Ashe, let it be so. Bless our families and communities. Ashe, let it be so. Bless our plantings, work, and creativity. Ashe, let it be so. Bless us so we may be kind, generous, and loving. Ashe, let it be so. Bless us so we may never forget. Ashe, let it be so. I welcome you all. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. On behalf of our faculty, staff, students, and our president, Dr. Phyllis Bertha Dawkins, I'm delighted to welcome you to Bennett College, to Wilbersteel Hall Art Gallery, and to the SoJourns exhibit featuring the artistic works of Andrena Coleman and James Mays. The theme of this event is aptly captured as SoJourns, the artistic creation of Andrena Coleman and writings of James P. Mays. This is a unique collaboration of poetry and fabric arts, expressing the visual concepts and the written observations of the Black experience as experienced by our artists. But you know what? Tonight, we'll be able to get a glimpse and view into their lives in a segregated society, at the brink of integration, doing integration, and their fight for unity. So as you move through the gallery, remember all the dreams that have been deferred from fans and loved ones long past. And also remember As Ms. Coleman so aptly noted on her artistic board, people will forget what you say. People will forget what you do. But people will always remember how you made them feel. Experience the feeling tonight. Welcome to Bennett College.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Deborah Barnes, professor of Africana Study from first one place and another. It is such a privilege for me to be here tonight with these two wonderful artists. And the minute that they mentioned this project to me, at first just to look at the poems and kind of edit them. If you have an English degree, everybody wants you to read what they write. And they were so wonderful, I was excited to be in it. And then I heard they were going to be paired with the quilts. And I'm like, I'm in, count me in. So then when I finally met Andrena and saw her work, she'll tell you, I've been like a groupie. I've just been fawning all over the place, wishing I had enough money to give everybody a quilt. But I want to tell you two things about this exhibit and this moment. One is about the Black Arts Movement. Not as many people know about the Black Arts Movement as know about the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance is like the first time that African Americans really get the opportunity to speak about what it means to be a part of Black culture for themselves, to describe for themselves what we are versus have someone else tell us what we are in a racist society. The Black Arts Movement, on the other hand, is part of the militant arm that came out of the Black Power movement. And at that time, everything was about African roots, about self-sufficiency, about unity, about rhythm and culture, all of the things that I look around this room and I think that all of you were probably, if not a part of the movement, were certainly around during that movement and remember those days. Well, by the time Malcolm X gets shot, something different begins to happen in the arts. Instead of it being sort of laudatory and celebrating things, it becomes very angry, becomes very militant, and people begin to use discourse, the written word, as a form of resistance, as a way of fighting off racism. And so one of the large ways that it gets played out is through culture, certainly literature and poetry, and also material arts and theater. And so a lot of the theater festival that comes out of Winston every year is grounded in that Black Arts Movement tradition. Well, both of these artists are certainly a part of that tradition in that they, James started writing his poetry in that moment, and Andrena, though she wasn't making these particular quilts at that moment, was learning how to do it in part from her grandmother and her elders. And so you're seeing the articulation of two important things from that moment. One is voice, being able to articulate your voice, being able to say what it meant to be you as an African grounded in your own centeredness, which we had no practice at, really. And the other thing is memory, building whatever it is that we do on what has already gone by with our ancestors and elders. And so the quilts certainly represent that tradition, and the poetry represents the verbal resistant tradition. Not in the sense that he's writing angry poems like Amiri Baraka did, but in the sense that he is redefining what it means to be Black. And he's defining it as a kind of power, as being grounded in beauty and balance and unity. And I think as you move around the room and you read the poems, you'll be able to see that that's reflected there. Another thing is a kind of coincidence that really made me happy about this project. The very first publication, I'm getting ready to be redundant, the very first article I ever published professionally as a doctor person was about SoJourning. And nobody had ever really heard about that before. So when I found out that this book was SoJourners, I'm like, get out of here, look how God works. He just never sleeps, does he? And so I wanted to say a little bit about sojourning in case you are not as familiar with that as many of us, certainly my friends that I grew up with in this room, we were sojourners. A sojourner is a person who goes from the culture that they know into an alien culture for a protracted but temporary period of time. So if you went away to Colorado to college or something, and you were out there for 4 years and didn't come back for Christmas, you would be a sojourner. Okay? Well, we take a little bit of liberty with that term in the sense that those of us who integrated schools were sojourners. That every day we left the black community and went all the way on the other side of town or wherever it was to a world that was nothing like the world we came from. They didn't know we were great, they didn't know we were beautiful or smart or any of those things. And so we had to code switch, we had to shape shift, we had to be something different. By day, we were like a superhero. One thing by day, another thing by night. In order for you to code switch, you have to be completely conversant in what your culture is. And you don't know what the parallel term is, right? If you're going to code switch, you oscillate from one thing to another. That means that you have to understand both of those cultures intimately in order to make that distinction and to make that turn. And so what you're seeing here is the articulation of all of those cultural specifics that they clearly know in its intricacy and how it's all woven together as both voice and memory. That we can go back and recover that period, understand what it was at that moment with them and what it has always been with us. I hope you enjoy this exhibit.
Good evening. I'm Andrena, Coleman. I like to add that Stoddard in there because that is my family name. I always want to keep that first and foremost. When James and I talked about this project maybe 6-9 months ago, he handed me a book. And it was a book of his writings. And I was like, Well, even before we talked about the project, he gave me the book. And I'm looking at it, and I said, you know, we could do something really creative with this. I'll make a quilt to match some of the poems. And it started from there. This has been a very unique journey. I'm more of a spiritual quilter. I like to read into the quilts what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and looking at different things that's going on in the world, but also something that will catch the eye and that people can enjoy, and also share in the memories. James said, well, just pick out the poems that you like. Okay, how do I do that? Okay. And I knew what my capacity was. If I could get to 18, I would be doing good. And I got to 18. I wanted to do some more, but that's the next exhibit, James. We'll do that on the next one. But the more I did, the more I read the poems and read into what was going on, I began to feel a sense of my past life, my current life, and things going on. And kind of parallel with James. As you move around, you see some of the quilts are named for songs that you will remember back in the 70s and 80s. I'll play the music a little later. This is not a party, but I know we'll bring back some memories and flashbacks. But when I did the piece in the back with the two sculptures facing each other, the man and woman, and that's the poem that he wrote. That was for Minnie. You remember that? I thought of the song Still Waters by the Four Tops. So, of course, I go get my albums out. I don't have any of those gadgets. I get my albums out and begin to play. And the words from his poems and his writings really kind of jumped off the page then. And I had a real sense of what we were doing. And I am just really honored that James chose me to help express his words. And I hope I've done a good job in doing that. Please enjoy the exhibit. We will be here until May the 11th. If you have any questions, we'll be available afterwards. Yes.
I did not choose Andrena. And I don't think she chose me. You learn, you live long enough, that you're not really in control of this. Then when you realize that, then you have to find a way. That's that word continuity in the libations. That we're part of a continuity. That the energy goes back to time immemorial. And it comes to us. And it helps us find each other. It helps us find moments, right, and ways of expressing our life. So it found me in 1966. I was looking for some way to be expressive. And someone said to me, you know, 3 o'clock at this certain place, you can go and people are reciting poetry. I said, poetry. And what I knew about poetry is what many of us who were reading the writers of the Harlem Renaissance, and I said, that's good stuff, but I don't like that. I'm not interested in that. But I found a voice. And I found that I can nurture that voice. And I found that, in essence, the voice was not really individual, but it was part of a chorus. Because there were other people who were using their voice. And there was space for me and my voice. And there were people who were welcoming, and people who understood the craft, and understood how we fit into the continuum. And so I went that first day, and then it just took off from there. So growing up in the community I grew up in, you would normally see people like Langston Hughes walking the street, or James Baldwin, or other people who you could stop and talk to. These are people who were accessible. But when I went to this new circle, and these names may not mean anything to you, but people like Felipe Luciano, all right, an Afro-Puerto Rican, you know, was in the circle. Victor Hernandez Cruz, Doris Kemp, and on and on and on. And I was nurtured by them, I enjoyed them, I was informed by them, and as in our aesthetic we say we give back. We do that all the time. Yes, Reverend, we don't go to church and not answer the call, right? You know. And so I learned this craft. And in learning it, I found that it became a necessary part of who I am. So some of these things were published, but about 2, maybe 3 years ago, I said, you know, I've been wanting to gather them all together and do a small anthology. And I did. And I shared it. It wasn't for sale, but I shared it with people that I felt their energy. And Andrena was why I've seen her work. And so yes, I want to, share it with her. And we found in our communication that, we've tapped into something here. All right. And let's pull it together and let's share it with other people. And so tonight is an occasion. Well, it's more than an occasion. It's we're building family. And we want to continue to build family. And so after I finish my little talk here, right, we're going to ask you to join in. We want your observations, right? This is the blessed circle, okay? We want your observations and affirmations. But first, I'm going to share a few poems with you. Not too many. You know what they say, they start reading and you can't sit them down. But I'm going to share a few. One that I read earlier when I came in is based upon someone I knew who was very dear to me, and she left us far too early. I remember Rita bearing the misery of our parents and all our guilt for being black. I remember Rita. Jet black and regal, short hair, but never short on energy and wishes. I remember us, never expecting anything from Rita, never nurturing Rita, never reaching for her to stop the pain, to stop the tricks, to stop the needle, to dry her eyes. Every sunset, I remember Rita. I remember that sunset in '69, a stolen moment near the river, and her sweet voice saying, in this life, try a little tenderness. We mentioned a quote back there with the two African statues looking at each other. So I'm going to read this. It's titled 1:29:71, 1:25 a.m. So you know when you're young, you could stay up all hours, you know, being creative and doing all this stuff. You pass over that bridge, it's like that could be tomorrow. But this is for Minnie Battle, who is my wife. Okay. If, in thoughts of spring, I came to you in a different way, would those cold winter nights turn to sun, to morning, swirling days, times of sun, if I came? If I came to you with the mellow side state on me, you, our meaning, feelings of we, if I came, could you be there, be mine, ours, you, yours, and us, and oneness, if I came? Wow, more. A channel of life. As they say, listen to the Black experience and you shall learn of me and you, of countless numbers of dreams deferred, roads not taken, rising crosses and stone blows. Listen and you will hear of promised loves, of promised soul, of promised land, of born frees. And then perhaps one more. People get ready. And yes, it parallels, you know, we think of the Impressions. People get ready. So this kind of inspired this a little bit, right? It is past time saying it's time for a change. You get it, amen? It's past time saying it's time for a change. No longer. It is time, it's changed for a time in which we can not merely survive, but live in the full scope of ourselves, so that the names of our social elites will be Hassan and Bakri and Omanika and black and beautiful LIB people. Note, WLIB was a radio station in New York. Del Shields and Billy Taylor, and they played the music, okay? And somebody bought it and just changed it to something else. But for the time, if you wanted to hear unedited, uncut, straight to the people, LIB was the place. So, I just want to read this the closing poem, because I think that expresses a sentiment here. And then we're going to open it up. This is titled Closing Poem. Sometimes there are times when you really don't want to think about time, like how fast it's passing, or not moving. Then there are times when you only think about time, like the first time, and the smile times, and the wine times, joy times, and just plain feel-good times. I mean, there are the times you wish you could spend time with someone, quality time, and times you wish you could hold on to forever and ever, because they are filled with people and places that defy time, precious moments. I like passing time and making time, but really, I like being in time, in tune with someone who is on time. And who made one moment of this time, this so precious time, this little time, real. Thank you for being here. So what we want to do now is we want to open it up. So you've heard from us, right? And so now this is the answer back, right? You don't have to respond to anything we say, anything I read, or anything I see here, but yes.
It's the only time I've ever heard poetry where people get you right in the middle and stop. Stop! What are you going to do after that?
Now, is that a request for another one?
I'm going to admit my ignorance. I'm new to this, so maybe this is a genre of something that's been going on a lot, or did you create that? I mean, I don't know. I mean, just stop. Just stop. You can't.
Let me think on that. Let me think on that.
Okay.
Yes.
How did you know, can you talk a little bit about your pairing process? What jumped out at you when you knew this poem works with this quilt?
Well, Andrena, okay, Andrena. So, she was absolutely correct. She said, well, how should we do it? I said, Andrena, pick the ones you like. Because I wanted her to read the word and see how that moved her. And see how that got translated into colors and patterns. And I didn't want to make that, I'm not going to jump into her and try to make that decision for her. Let her do that. Okay. And so on the program, you know, it says Andrena Coleman, Orishas in the fabric. You know what the Orishas are? Right? It is, okay. So, Orishas start with Yoruba pathway. But because that pathway, you know, it crossed the ocean and it morphed into a lot of different things. So we use that here as being a generic way of talking about the African spirits, right? The connection between us and the Creator. So the Orishas are in the fabric.
Okay.
Right? And the spirit is in the stitch. And she's stitching, she's being moved by all of that. Right. And similarly on my side, you know, my journeys are, a lot of my work, some is not here, it's talking about journeying home. And the words have wings for me. They are taking me to places, you know. So I wanted her to be inspired, and then come back to me and say, hey, you know, but not in words, but right there, you see this? This connects with this.
Right.
I said, yeah, I see that.
Right.
I mean, yeah. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
And so we went through it, you know, and I think you were there that night in Dream Songs when we were going through these, you know. And
I was there.
In the moment, right? Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things, if we, just as an example, if you take a look at the quote on this wall, and the title of it, it's a long title, James, and the white girl laughs, black speaker's response to his audience. You know, just as I read the title, I knew then what I wanted to do. But quilting is also research. So as I read the poem, I wanted to depict, I guess, I wanted to memorialize those black leaders, those individuals who have been assassinated, murdered over the years. And I did a wide spectrum. You know, we often don't think of a black woman being hung. I wanted to depict that. The 4 girls in Birmingham, Trayvon and Emmett Till, side by side. So if you get a chance to take a look at that background. I also have Sam Cooke on there. You know, was he killed by him? No, you know, now theory is he was assassinated. So, you know, just being able to give people some thought about what really happened and how it can happen again and how it is happening again.
And once you finish your quilt, are you able to let it go? I mean, you put so much, can you? And I assume every quilt is different.
Every quilt, every quilt is one of a kind, and I make my own designs. So they.
But that's part of you. I mean, you can just.
I just want to. Yeah.
how what you're doing is the same.
Yes, ma'am.
It took you 6 months to do 18 quilts based on just 18 poems that you selected?
Well, I think there's 1 or 2 quilts that may have been done in 2017, but they're roughly, the majority were done in 2018, 2019. Yeah. Well, you can see my finger now, it's out of shape. But no, once I get started, my mode of operation is I don't start another quilt until I finish the one I'm working on. So I don't have a lot of pieces sitting around, you know, trying to figure out, because each quilt is a thought process. And I'm carrying it to completion.
And I've killed a lot of trees. You know, because when you write, you're always, it's always with you. This is the thing. Okay, so we mentioned James Baldwin earlier, and I remember having a conversation with him, you know, because it was interesting is that Baldwin, in talking about Richard Wright, because, you know, he kind of ascended to the, you know, be the writer, and Richard Wright, we no longer read there, but Baldwin would say that about creativity, you know, and about black genius. He observed that it's not really individual, right? That you're pulling from something, you're pulling from this soup out here, right? Therefore, it was important for you to be connected to it. So it's always with you, because we're always processing it, right? And then there may be those moments where you say, I got it, let me put it down, let me memorialize it, and then kind of move on. And so this conversation I had with him reminded him of his theory, because, you know, he left the soup and moved to Europe. He was in Switzerland and France for a while. And I said, Brother Baldwin, you know, the same criticism you made of Richard Wright, right? You made this separation, so what's up with this? Right? And so, you know how Baldwin, you know, but it's always with us. And that's the, and so it's not only is it always with us, it's never really yours. You can't really claim, this is my genius. No. Because all the things in the cadence of the words and in the patterns, they come from that deep place of origin that goes back.
Are you going to publish this collaboration?
Are we going to publish the
collaboration?
Well, we do. We have both in there is a soft cover copy of the poems and the quilts, and this hard cover, right? And so these are available. So later after we close out, you know, should you want to take a little bit of this home, you know, take out the palm wine, Kool-Aid, whichever, right? You can have a look at these more in detail. Thank you for that question. I need a publicist. If there aren't any other comments, we're going to kind of mingle now and talk. And yes, we're going to have President Dawkins give us some closing remarks, but and then we'll kind of get to know each other a little more. Yes?
Before you go on, I want to make one comment about the quilts. And I don't want to tell anybody how to look at the quilts, because I know you already know. But I want to tell you this about Andrena. She has all kinds of little surprises and little bitty hidden things. It's kind of Where Waldo-like sensibility. It's not Waldo, but I'm saying in each quilt, it's like the tiniest little thing to make you smile, to make you say, oh, look at that. So don't walk by it like this. Do it like this, so that you can see all of the detail. There's some really wonderful hidden, sometimes it's jewelry and patches and dresses that you're going to recognize from your 2 African dresses for Black History Month. So you're going to find that.
Good evening, everyone. It's so good to be here. I want to thank Dr. Mays. When I came into the gallery tonight, immediately was drawn to the concept of a poem and a quilt. And it reminded, the quilts always remind me of when I was growing up and sitting around my grandmother in South Carolina and watching them make quilts, and made sure that before my grandmother died and my aunt, she's still living, she still makes quilts. They had a quilt on every bed in the house. Also, when I arrived here in 2015, I met Miss Coleman prior to my arrival during my interview process. So when I got here, we made connections. We have people we know in South Carolina. My husband is grew up within miles of where Andrena grew up. So immediately, of course, she took us to her house, and we bought a collection of quilts. And so now her quilts hang in my daughter's house. I have two daughters. I have a daughter in LA and a daughter in Wisconsin. So we have quilts there from Andrena. We have quilts at home from Andrena. And of course, I have quilts in the president's house from Andrena. So I love quilts. One of these days, that's my retirement job, to make quilts. Dr. Mays, just want to say thank you for not only what you're doing here today, but for working with our students, Model UN, okay? And our faculty member, Robert, someplace here, shared that with me. This is a good day. I love this whole concept. I particularly love that quilt in the back with the black background. Andrena is so talented. I also want to say something about the poems. I also have a daughter. I have two daughters there on Extreme Ends. One is a writer, she writes poems. One is a neurosurgeon. You can see the Extreme Ends, right? But I love reading poems, and I like, just like you today when he was reading the poems, I felt like you need to say a little bit more. Okay? And so we appreciate what they have shared with us today, and thank you for coming.
As my cohort, my partner here in crime, has said, we do have books for sale. And we are really pleased. This is the first time I've published anything, so, you know, I'll leave an autograph, and if you can find it, you know, my signature might be worth something. And I'm sure James will also autograph the book that's sold tonight. And if you decided you're not going to get it tonight, you can order. You have book order forms available. And if you want to tell your friends about it, James has information about how they can go online and order the book. One good thing, those sales that for tonight, correct me if I'm wrong, no, the sales tonight, a portion of the net proceeds will go toward the Wilkerson Hall Art Gallery. So we're really pleased about that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Please enjoy it.
If you had a choice of colors, which one would you choose, my brothers? If there was no day or night, which would you prefer to be right? How long have you hated your white teacher, who told you you love your black preacher? Do you respect your brother's woman friend, and share with black folks not of kin? People must prove to the people a better day is coming for you and for me. With just a little bit more education and love for our nation would make a better society. Now some of us would rather cuss and make a fuss than to bring about a little trust. But we shall overcome, I believe, someday, if you'll only listen to what I have to say. And how long have you hated your white teacher, who told you you love your respect your brother's woman friend, and share with black folks not of kin. I say now people must prove to the people
a better day is coming
for you and for me, with just a little bit more education
and love for our nation
would make a better society. And if you had a choice of colors, which one would you choose, my brothers? If there was no day or night, which would you prefer to be right? And if you had a choice of colors, which one would you choose, my brothers? If there was no day or night, which would you prefer to be right? If you had a choice of colors, which one?
What does Black Power mean to you?
Black power to me means independence, self-sufficiency, self-love, and unity. And those were sort of the abiding themes in the Black Power era, that everybody wanted to work together, to act as one body, that we learned to love ourselves on our own terms and not to think of ourselves in the ways that the white mainstream made us feel during segregation, that we were less than, other than, insufficient in some way, that we were whole and healthy. And these quilts will show we were also happy, that in the midst of oppression we still told stories and were happy and had families and laughed. You can see the musical tradition in the quilts, you can see the syncopation of rhythms, repetition of themes, just like music. So what we did was to embed all of our cultural particulars in the quilts and in the oral tradition, and they've managed to stay until today so that we could resurrect them in 2019, many decades after the fact.
How do the poems and quilts connect?
Well, I will say that it started with James May's poetry, and he and Andrena Coleman are very good friends, and he was telling her that he was planning to publish this book of poems he wrote when he was quite young. And she read them and she said, oh, I've got the exact same quilts that reflect those sensibilities. And they decided they wanted to try to pair them, and once they did, they decided they had to put them in the book along with the poetry. And then we wanted everyone to experience the splendor of these quilts, and while they're reproduced in the book, it's not quite the same as seeing them in person. And so they decided to display them with the attendant poem and the artwork at the same time.
All these poems that Dr. Mays has written, what is your favorite one and what does it mean to you?
I don't know. My favorite one might be the one we're standing in front of, Lumumba's Woman. Now remember, this is all about the time when I'm in college, so these are vivid memories for me when everything else has fallen by the wayside. But I remember how much we used to think about Africa. None of us been to Africa, had seen Africa. We only knew what we knew on Tarzan movies, but we knew that wasn't right. Lumumba's Woman is all about an African woman, but her problems are the same as the problems that we have. Now, problems with relationships, problems with love, problems with loss. In this case, she's lost her husband, and she's mourning his loss, but she's thinking of it in some very specific and cultural ways. And I like that. I don't know, it was very unique, I thought, and memorial of something that wasn't in everybody else's life at the time. Now, one of the things about the Black Arts Movement was to make people understand African culture who had not been exposed to it. And one of the ways that you make these connections is to show how things are similar. So if this African woman has the same sorts of problems that we have, then you understand those synergies, and it diminishes the whole importance of time and distance. We can feel these emotions now, and we're in North Carolina and not Africa and not the 1960s, you see. So one of the things about this exhibit is that it blends voice and memory together. Like a quilt itself is memory. right? That you're taking on, not in this case, but generally in the quilting tradition, you take little bits of cloth from lots of different things and you make a new design with that. And so every time you look at this piece right there, you say, oh, that was my grandmother's wedding dress, and it brings back that memory. Or my great aunt taught me this stitch, and this way memories are passed down. But it's also a voice in the sense that, let's look at this quilt, in the sense that this is what women say to each other about themselves, right? So one of the things I love about this quilt, and you really have to look, is there are lots of women embedded in this quilt who are working. Like, here's a woman, here's some women, here's some women. I mean, they're all kind of hidden in and through, that we don't think about how things get made, how things get done. And in most cases, all around the world, it's because women are doing the work. But they don't sit around and pout about doing the work. It is embedded in this incredibly colorful tapestry of lots of different things, right? And you see repeated patterns. So when you see these triangles, these angles, that's like a syncopated beat, right? And when you see squares, it's like angles inside of squares, right? So there's a kind of geometry to it that you're also showing you. And so people taught people very complex ideas that they wouldn't have understood if they were sitting in a college classroom by quilting. And so the way it weaves all those things together, pattern and color, it takes a lot of really different colors that you might not try to put together in an outfit, and somehow makes them work. And everybody gets a little something different from it. And another thing I like about this is, intense as the pattern is, inside these triangles, they're all solid. So it's almost like a resting space. It's almost like a holy place where you can go in and meditate and get away from the busyness, the hurdy-gurdiness of life, if you will. I think it says so much, but one of the things that can be missed in today's culture when you're thinking about quilts is you really have to take time to just stand here and look at it. And people are used to flipping like this through their phone really fast. This is not about fast. This is about hunting for Easter eggs. Where can I look in all of this grass and all these bushes and find little treasures that are tucked away? And that makes me think of the next quilt I wanted to show you. So the thing I love about this quilt is that, first of all, it's very busy and it's multi-dimensional. I'm not sure that'll translate on camera, but you can see that this is like a flap. These are fringes, right? So almost like the wind could get in that and flutter it. This too is not tacked down. And there are little jewels that are hidden in little cowrie shells, which worked as money in some parts of West Africa, right? Then there are these jeweled motifs that she has hidden in here. Just like, again, I'm back to the Easter eggs, right? Just little happy, delightful things. Look at this gold amulet here that you wouldn't expect to find that in a quilt, right? And then there's the playfulness of these buttons. I mean, it's just, everything is going on. This is a person who made this, who was happy, who wanted to have fun, and who wanted to show sort of the joy of life. Even though these women are working, they look like they're having a good time at it, right? And they're just going about their business. They're very fertile, right? Which means that they're doing everything the way nature intended it. And you see that there are a lot of threes. Here's another 3 women here, which is, you know, the number of divinity, if you will. And a lot of Ms. Coleman's quilts have these little messages in it, where you get to see words, either cultural directives that tell us, for example, direct your own, what does it say? Direct your own destiny. Remember I was saying that agency and autonomy is key. The self-determination is a key to Black power. And so all of that gets written in the quilt in different ways, and other people will read it differently, but it's so delightful, I think, just to see the juxtaposition of these different patterns, like triangles, here are lines, here's like concentric squares, concentric rectangles. I can only imagine this is the way to teach geometry. Maybe if they taught it to me, I'd know some now.
Was it hard matching the poems with the quotes?
I don't know. I didn't have anything to do with that. I think Ms. Coleman matched the poems with the quilts, I think. My role in this project was to write the historical narrative, to talk about the Black Arts Movement and the tradition that gave rise to this, these quilts. So I wrote the introduction to the book.
Hi, Sydney. So you say you've been looking at this quilt. What does it mean to you? Is anything that pop out to you?
Probably, I guess, the blossom soul of it, all the intricate colors that they have in the quilt, like interwoven together. So yeah, I just kept trying to picture back in my head, like, what does the blossom soul actually mean?
What does it mean to you?
I guess watching a flower grow from the ground, from a seed to a blossom, like to all the many petals that it has. So Afro, Tika, and then Black Charisma, and then the Black Rose. So beauty, and then reality, essentially.
Thank you, Sydney. Hi, I'm here with Dr. Linster. Dr. Linster, how do you feel when a new art exhibit comes to the Still Art Gallery?
I am so excited about that experience. First of all, it provides our students with an opportunity to enrich their lives through art, the artistic works of others. So I'm extremely excited about this, and I know our students are excited also.
I see that you was looking at this quote right here. Does any quote stands out to you, and what does it mean to you?
Oh, this is, I love all the artwork and poetry, but this is the one that stands out for me. The channel of life, and because of that, it says, listen to the Black experience, and you shall learn of me and you. This is an opportunity for students to not only know their history, but also know what this culture, growing up in the United States as an African American, actually meant, and what it meant to the artists, but also through this, you get to see what it means to you, because they go on to talk about the countless numbers of dreams deferred. And then you think about all those people that came before you, your sisters that are with you, that haven't made it to Bennett College. They haven't had this experience. They'll only know what you tell them. But it's not because they didn't have a dream. That was that dream deferred. Or they took another road. Think about that. Think about the number of friends you have back home that would love to be in the place that you're in. That's what I think about. So we talk about listening, you will hear promised loves, of promised soul, of promised land, a born free. And this is what our forefathers wanted, us to be able to take a dream, believe it, and move out to achieve it. And not say that because I'm Black, because I'm blonde, I won't be able to do that. Or that's a place I can't go. Or that's a water fountain. I can't drink at it. That's why this touches me. And I love only a fool tests the depth of the water with both feet. You know you're always tested before you move in, because you never know how deep it is, and you never want to sink. I love this.
Well, thank you, Dr. Linster.
Thank you so very much.
Hi, we are here with Dr. Mays. Dr. Mays, what do you do?
What do I do? Well, I am recently retired as a faculty member of North Carolina A&T State University. There I served as a director and a chair of an academic department. And so in my retired life, I am returning to things that I have long pursued, one of which is writing.
So,
bring the mic back to you.
What do you write?
Well, I started writing in 1966. A friend, in fact, a teacher, said if I was interested in doing something to help better my writing skills and to share messages with people that I cared about and on issues I cared about, that there was a poetry club that met at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I should go. And I did, and I'm glad I did.
The poems that are in this art exhibit, which one stands out to you the most?
Well, all of them are dear to my heart. But the one we are standing in front of, which is titled All About Rita, is especially meaningful to me because Rita was a close friend. And she died way too young, and she had some challenges in her life, but we were able to share about a number of things. So whenever I can lift her up, and in whichever way I can, I like to do that, and when I read this poem, it reminds me of her.
Dr. Mays,
Yes.
would you read this poem?
Oh, certainly. I'll have to get my handkerchief ready, but it's titled All About Rita. I remember Rita, bearing the misery of her parents and all our guilt for being black. I remember Rita, jet black and regal, short hair, but never short on energy and wishes. I remember us, never expecting anything from Rita, never nurturing Rita, never reaching for her to stop the pain, to stop the tricks, to stop the needle, to dry her eyes. Every sunset, I remember Rita. I remember that sunset in '69, a stolen moment near the river, and her sweet voice saying, in this life, try a little tenderness.
Thank you, Dr. Mays.
Thank you.
Hi, now we are here with Ms. Connie Hammond. Hi, Ms. Connie Hammond. How do you feel about the exhibit today?
Well, I love the quilt work. I've seen some of Ms. Coleman's work before, and it's absolutely fabulous. She continues to do just remarkable work as far as I'm concerned. And the combination of the beauty that her quilts represents with the written word is just a very powerful statement. So I'm so impressed with the exhibit.
Thank you, Ms. Connie Hammond. Hi, now I'm here with Dr. Williams, a political science professor here at Bennett College. So can you tell me a little bit, what does this exhibit mean to you?
What I like about this, of course, I know both of the artists, Andrena Coleman and James Mays. And I know them for many years. I started here at Bennett in 2004. And for me, I like the way that the quilts relate to the themes. And I always find that interesting because art is a matter of interpretation, as oftentimes politics is. And I teach political science here, we always talk about those dimensions. So I like the exhibit because of that. Political themes and, of course, the nice motifs.
What does this one mean to you that we are standing right now?
Well, this one I like because the title, if I can look over your shoulders, is And the White World Laughs. I think it's very interesting because of the picture here and the various images, of course, of people that have suffered from white supremacy in so many different ways. That's probably not a single, everyone here has suffered in one way or other from white supremacy that has existed. So I think in this case, it brings in the older with Nat Turner, right? Obviously the lynchings, which is important here because women were lynched as well as African-American males. And we have Patrice Lumumba, then Sam Cooke, etc., and of course Mandela and so on. So I think it's very interesting because it brings in old and more recent tragedies.
Dr. Williams, what is your favorite piece of this exhibit, Art Gallery?
Now, I do like this one, I think, because of the historical import and so on that it has. But I think from a personal point of view, not just a political point of view, it would be the piece over here. The piece here that it says All About Rita, and I need to ask Dr. Mays about that, but what I like about this is not only the coloration and the imagery of black women, but also the poem itself. I am the black woman, the music of my song, some sweet arpeggio of tears, I think is just very powerful. And teaching at a black college, I think, in women's college, I think is very important, so it brings out a lot of views and values that I espouse.
This one is very intricate, complicated, intriguing. I try to get into Miss Coleman's head. She's one of the most creative persons I've ever met. I have, as I said earlier, I have some of her quilts in my house. But she never ceased to amaze me. Every year there's an exhibit with her quilts, and I don't know how she finds the time to make all these quilts. So I especially like this one. I like the one in the front as well.
It's awesome. That's all I can say. It's awesome. I've never, this is the first of its kind that I've been to like this, and I'd like to invite other people to do the same. A lot of talent here.
Very exciting, Vic. Very exciting. It gives you a sense of real feel of yesterday, and as we go through our lives each day, we need this type of thing to look back on and just see how it was, how it is. So it's been a very, very exciting show to me, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Enjoy the speakers, and especially these quilts and these poems. Being somewhat of a poet, these poems really touched my heart. Enjoyed it.
I'm really moved by the way that the poetry and the quilt are working together to share a message that's visual and lyrical, beautiful words and beautiful, and in this case, painful images to go with them. I'm excited to see the entire exhibit. Thank you.
So tonight's event was truly amazing, understanding that each of these pieces centered around women, predominantly black women, is just empowering and uplifting.
Yeah, reading a lot of the quotes and the poems that go along with them, it's very empowering, like she was saying, but it's also beautiful to see how they both come together to make a full story.
So we're just having this discussion about this particular piece about white man killing black folk, and today is Friday. And today in New Zealand, white man did his thing.
49 people.
49 people.
My statement was, Friday here, we haven't gotten to Sunday. Friday in New Zealand, but we haven't gotten to Sunday in America yet.
So
we know that these things travel fast, especially with the technology that we have today to make it travel that much faster, the news travel much faster, and there are folks here waiting for the opportunity, especially with the press and the hype that is around that New Zealand situation.
And my comment was, I'm just feeling so hard for the folks in New Zealand, because what they're saying is they had 11 people killed all year last year. The entire nation had 11 people killed. They don't know murder there the way we know murder here. They don't know white men. The guy was from Australia. He wasn't even from New Zealand, right? And so this disease, it's spawned a seed in this place where it didn't exist.
It's becoming more and more common relative to the various global situations that we see. Israel, New Zealand, Venezuela, Brazil. It's becoming more and more commonplace. At one time there were isolated situations in various parts of the world, but now they're becoming more and more commonplace because I'll take the risk. Who's going to do the most damage? It looks like there's trophies out there for these folks to hang their hats on.
Okay. So the quilt is about murdering of. So it's about bullets from mechanical white factories, white guns killing black people, and this happened today in New Zealand.
The title, "The White World Laughs," Black Speaker's response to his audience. And if you look at the response to the audience, many situations we have here.
I love the blackness of it. I love the heritage, our heritage, the African American heritage. I love the music and the melodies that the notes and the words make. And it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like dancing. It makes you want to sing. It makes you just want to come alive and enjoy life.
Andrena Coleman, one of the authors of the exhibit. Miss Andrena Coleman, what inspired you to making these quilts?
Well, quilting is really a passion, and it was an interest I've had for years, and I like color, I like being creative, putting things together, not knowing what I'm going to come out with in the end, but it's always an experience, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy people looking at them.
Which one of the quilts in this exhibit inspires you and stand out to you the most?
All 18.
All 18.
It's hard to tell because I was going through a different thought process with each one of them. So each one is it's special in its own way, particularly as it's related to the poems and the writings of James.
Do any of the quilts relate to anyone?
For me personally, no. No, yes.
But thank you, Ms. Coleman.
But thank you. Okay.
Hi, we are now here with Miss Lisa. Miss Lisa, how do you feel about the exhibit today?
I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's very inspiring. The pieces that I've seen, especially, you can't remember it, but it has the empowerment quilt is wonderful.
What does the quilts mean to you that you've seen so far?
It really means to embrace your blackness, embrace your heritage, and to feel proud about it. So it's a wonderful piece.
What does black excellence mean to you?
Well, considering I'm black, it means everything. You know, for so long, being black has not really been in, but I would certainly say, even with all that's going on in the world today, black is in, and black beauty's in, and black excellence is in. So this is a wonderful tribute to that.
Well, thank you, Ms. Lisa.
People get ready as a train You don't need no baggage, you just get on. All you need is faith to hear the demons call. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord.
Yes, I did.
So people get ready for the train to join, picking up passengers coast to coast. Faith is the key, open the doors and board 'em. There's hope for all among those loved the most. There ain't no room for the hopeless sinner who would hurt all mankind just to save his own. Believe me now, have pity on those whose chances grow thinner, for there's no hiding place against the kingdom's throne. So people get ready, there's a train